Our meeting is called to order. Seems like the Rotarians have blossomed with the flowers this spring. So welcome everyone to the Wayne and on Zoom. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Mark Black, would you mind giving the invocation today?
I can do that. If you'll join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings that you've given to all of us. Thank you for allowing us to gather here and to celebrate in the spirit of unity and in the spirit of service to others, that we just combine our natural talents together so that we may contribute to our local, regional, and state communities to make this a better place in which to reside and to restore and ensure that we go on in harmony. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Tracy has our song.
Can we stand up for the song?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can dance. You can stand. Keep standing.
Gotcha. It's been so long since I've done it in person, I don't know how to behave.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Please have a seat. I was ready for a dance break, but it didn't go. Margaret has no guests or visiting Rotarians today. We might have one later today. Happy Dollars. Len, pull it. And then we'll get you, Meg.
I've actually got two happy dollars. My first happy dollar is it's only 2 days from this virtual district conference, and that anchor will get off my neck. The second happy dollar is this was the best barbecue I've had in over a year. I'm so psyched. So thank you, Rick.
Meg?
My happy dollar is my son, who is a 9th grader at Fishburne, got the best report card he has ever gotten and is so happy in school. And so I don't know, I'm on the moon. I've been walking on air. So thank you to Fishburne Military School and to everybody. I just wanted you all to know that. Thank you.
Charlie?
Yes, I just want to reiterate what Lynn said. I am enjoying the best $5 meal in the history of the state, and everybody should come out next week to enjoy it also.
Yes, please welcome Rick, if I'm sure you did, but if you see him out there again, it was so good to see him and Dave. Any other happy dollars? Jeff?
You know, excited to announce some continued partnerships that are fostering and blooming into some summer activities and programming for our kids. As folks are aware, you know, COVID has had a little bit of an impact on our kids and families here. And the schools and the Y and adding on the partnership of the Wayne Theater and the Office on Youth are putting together another phenomenal summer for these kids. And we're also going to be working in tandem with that C4 group with the United Way and the Stanton YMCA to do some additional programming. There's lots that are going to be announced in the coming weeks of what the summer is going to look like for these kids, and it's just real exciting to see the classic It Takes a Village and the township has come together in Waynesboro and the surrounding region. So kudos to all the players that are putting in their time, energy, and talents to make sure these kids have a successful summer in light of all the challenges that they've had to face over the last 12 months. So it's exciting news are coming.
Yeah. Any other happy dollars? I guess we do have one little guest, Sophie, Christy's daughter. Welcome, Sophie.
I'll put in a happy dollar because I get to hang out with my favorite young lady today. And then also, I guess it's a happy dollar that tax season has been extended and it gives us an extra month to make sure that all of our community members take advantage of our free tax program. So.
Good. Mary, no other happy dollars? Mary Ann, Secretary's minutes.
I do have a couple of things. I'm back to my this and that, I hope. You should have had one in your box this morning. It went out yesterday, and it was Happy St. Patrick's Day, but if you got this morning, I still wish you had one. You had a good day. You saw all of the information that Rebecca asked me to send to you. They were events that are coming up and that we need help with, summer projects we need help with, and some of them are just reminders. One of the things that we didn't have, the district conference is this Saturday, and it will begin at 9 o'clock, and Richard Adams has put together a really good program of music, and we will start doing some of his music, I think at 8:45 for 15 minutes. Then in and out during the day, we will also have the Boogie Kings playing some different songs. I hope you enjoyed. But one thing we did mention, there is a memorial service. We will adjourn between 12:30 and 1, depending on how it runs, hopefully right on time. At 2 o'clock, there will be a memorial service, and this is for all the folks who not only passed this year, this current fiscal year, but also for the year before, because last year when at the homestead, when it was time to have the memorial service, everybody was gone. They left on Saturday afternoon. So we are going to incorporate them into our memorial service. So if you take a breather and go have some lunch or whatever you want to do, please come back in at 2 o'clock. And it is going to be a very nice memorial service that we have there. If you read everything, the cleanup is next Thursday after our meeting. We're now open, and we're with Rick. We're here at the Wayne. We know we're open through April here. And Rick is going to provide meals for us again. We did not make a decision how long we would give our special $5 box lunch. But I hope everyone that's here enjoy. We have many more people since there's food. Look, Rebecca, many more. And I cannot at this moment, I do not really think of anything else, Rebecca. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. One announcement, the strategic plan has been approved by our board and will be sent out to our membership in the next day or so, so please keep your eyes peeled in your email. It'll give us time to read and reflect on it before our program in early May when we officially present it. So I'd like to go ahead and move on to Kathleen. Would you give our intro to the speaker?
Can everyone hear me? I'm so pleased to welcome Greg Campbell. He's the Executive Director of the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport. He's been the Executive Director since 1992, and during his tenure with the airport, he's been responsible for almost $40 million worth of renovations and expansions at the airport to make it as modern as it is today. He has also created the airport's marketing program and the air service development program. Greg is also extremely active in outside activities. He is the past president of the Virginia Airport Operators Council, which is the organization that represents the 66 public use airports in the state of Virginia. And he's a member of the American Association of Airport Executives. I got to know Greg, first of all, because he's also extremely involved in local community organizations. He has served as the chair and continues to serve on the board of directors of the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, and he's on the board of directors of Go Virginia Region 8, and he also serves on the board of directors for the Greater Augusta Regional Chamber, and he's a member of the Augusta County Planning Commission. Greg holds a BA in political science from Bridgewater College, and he's a licensed commercial, multi-engine, and very important, instrument-rated pilot. And so please help me welcome Greg as our program today.
It'll cover them up, is that okay? Oh. Where is it? Right there. Host disabled.
Go ahead and press OK, and then share again. And you can click on. Slideshow on the bottom. This is the last one, yep. And then it went over.
All right, that should work. Thank you all for your patience. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you all. I was once a member of the Waynesboro Rotary many, many years ago and enjoyed my time in the club. Certainly it's changed a lot of new faces, so it's really good to come in and talk to you all today about your airport, the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport. It is your airport. And just before I get into this presentation, for those of you that have not heard much about us in this type of setting, I always like to start with a little bit of history and background about the airport. Back in the 1950s, there were a group of business and community leaders, some of which were from here in Waynesboro and eastern Augusta County, that recognized that this aviation thing was becoming a pretty big deal in terms of economic development, quality of life, and that if the valley was really going to be competitive, that we needed an air transportation facility that could handle business, corporate aircraft, and also airline service. At that time, there were a bunch of smaller airfields scattered around, including the one that's still at Eagle's Nest here in Waynesboro, but they really didn't have the infrastructure that was necessary to support real commerce. So that group of individuals, Chamber of Commerce and other business and community leaders got together and approached the federal government about building a regional airport. The interesting thing is, originally it was Augusta County, the city of Waynesboro, city of Stanton, and after a while they figured out with the interstate system that was being planned, it might be prudent if they involved their partners up the road to the north in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, which they did. And they formed the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport Commission to buy the property, develop it, and operate the airport. And that's the governing body today that operates the airport, is the Airport Commission. I work for the Airport Commission. The Airport Commission has 5 members, one from each of the 5 jurisdictions, the two counties and the 3 cities. Surprisingly, or for you all today, a real benefit is one of your members is the Waynesboro City Representative, Mr. Jeff Ward, who's with us today. If you have any questions after my presentation today, just go to Jeff. He'll be able to answer those for you. But Jeff does a great job for us and really provides tremendous leadership and support to the staff and to me. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Talking about this airport and why it was created, that airports are economic engines. They're economic development tools, and that's why this initiative was started back in the 50s, and that's why the facility has been developed and modernized over the years. Just to give you an idea, aviation's a big deal in Virginia, and according to a study that was done a couple of years ago by the Virginia Department of Aviation, they were able to quantify that on a daily basis, now this is pre-COVID numbers, but about 23,000 people move in and out of Virginia every day on aircraft. About 4,000 aircraft take off and land in Virginia every day. And the economic impact of that is those 66 public use airports and all those movements is approximately $23 billion annually and a payroll of about $7.7 billion. When you look at our local airport and what that means, SHD is responsible for about 430 jobs, 20 million in direct and indirect payrolls, and economic activity of at least 60 million. Now, these are 2017 numbers. I would guess with some things we've had happen in the last few years, it's even more significant than that. So I'll talk about the airport today. I want to talk to you about general aviation, which is basically everything but the airlines. Talk to you about the airline service. Also talk to you about our capital program, and then something I did this past winter. We put a little bit in about winter operations at the airport, and we're kind of on the tail end of that, but I thought it would still be interesting to kind of show you all the uniqueness and what goes on at an airport during bad weather. So the first thing I want to talk about is general aviation. When we all think about airports, we think about airlines because that's how most of us access the air transportation system. That's how most of us fly. And we do have airline service, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But there's this whole other umbrella called general aviation that covers everything from small recreational aircraft all the way up to the large business and corporate aircraft, charters. A new entrant is fractional ownership of corporate jets, and it's a big segment. For us, it represents a significant portion of our 80 or 90 operations a day, an operation being a takeoff or a landing. Really, it's over 90% of our operations. We're also the first face that prospective business and industry sees of the valley. Oftentimes when companies are looking at investing in the valley or expanding in the valley, they're going to utilize their own aircraft to visit us. They're not going to come on the airlines, and they don't drive down the road from Dulles. So it will be the first face of the valley that they see. It's significant in the region's economic development efforts. Without having that close-in access, our community is just simply not competitive, but we do have it. And it's a big factor in terms of site location, site selection from business and industry, and has played that important role over the years, and we've seen that in a lot of our good quality employers in industry here in the valley. They're some of our biggest users at the airport. It does represent a wide variety of industries. These shots at the bottom show you some of the local companies that utilize their own aircraft to access their facilities and their investments here in the valley. It's become a very cost-effective business tool for many of these companies to use their own aircraft instead of the airlines. We really get involved in economic development. Again, the airport's a critical part of that. If they can't access these operations, they don't locate here. If you want to see evidence of this, look just a little further to our south down in the Rockbridge area. And I'm not picking on those folks, but there's not a lot of business and industry down there. One of their last big employers was the Bluebird Bus Factory many years ago that left. And when they left, they cited that access to the community was one of the biggest reasons that they chose to close that facility. So fortunately, we've got this regional transportation asset that provides good access, equidistant to the 3 cities and the 2 counties. So it's really, really important. It's also important for things like talent attraction, retention, quality of life. This is a snapshot actually of one of the Rockingham County industries on the day they made a big announcement. Merck Pharmaceuticals, you may have read recently, I guess within the last year and a half, announced a $1 billion expansion at their Merck facility, at their Elkton facility. This was the day. That's their Gulfstream there to the left, and that's the governor's airplane to the right. So, you know, we kind of had an idea something was going on before that announcement because we start seeing those airplanes more often. And that's the role that we play. This is just kind of a list of sampling of the airplanes that we've seen through the facility in the last, probably 6 or 8 months. We try to keep this list updated, but that just gives you an idea. A lot of household names you probably recognize. Again, these are companies visiting the Valley. This is kind of an average day, Monday through Friday, of corporate jet operations that happen at the airport. Some of these companies we'll see 2 to 3 times a week. On to the airline side. We've had really good news in the last few years on the airline side. But this segment has had a little bit of a setback in the last year, and we see it as a temporary setback. Not so much specifically with us, but globally, the airlines have been very much impacted by the pandemic and the reluctance of folks to travel and states and countries being closed down. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the negative because we see this as a temporary. Things will come back. We're already starting to see signs of it rebounding. I think the takeaways that I'd like to leave with you today about airline service is that there have been significant impacts. And I think the next time you do travel by airline, you will probably notice some changes. Just in the last 10 months, there have been over 750 nonstop routes in the domestic U.S. that have been suspended or curtailed. When you look at that route map, it looks like one that would be operated by an airline. It's a lot of routes, 750 routes. Most of the major airlines, United, Delta, American, Southwest, well, maybe not so much with Southwest, their networks are operating at about half of what they were this time last year in terms of number of flights, available seats, and routes. So, until we start to see a little recovery, some of those flights you maybe used in the past, they may not be there. The good news is locally, we've maintained about 3/4 of our service throughout this. And we've had an outstanding partner that has provided exceptionally reliable service, even though the passenger loads have not been what they were prior. So I want to talk a little bit about that service. It's still there. It's doing well under the circumstances. But before we get into that, I know some of you probably, before we announced the United service in 2018, may have had some not so pleasant experiences trying to fly local. So just wanted to touch on that and acknowledge that. After airline deregulation in the 80s, a lot of the small communities were sort of left with what I would say were some of the subpar regional carriers out there that maybe operated turboprop aircraft. Maybe they didn't have an agreement with a mainline partner like a Delta or an American or a United. Maybe they didn't offer ticketing and bag seamless agreements. And more recently, in the last decade, a lot of them were impacted by a pilot shortage. And we had our share of some of these carriers trying to provide service in our community. That all changed in a big way in the spring of 2018. Through the growth in this community, we were able to convince United Airlines that this community deserved really their best service and not one of the small subpar carriers, that things had shifted since deregulation, and that there now were plenty of people here that preferred a local option if that option were reliable and well connected and priced competitively. So United entered this market in a big way. They introduced regional jet service to their hubs in Chicago and Washington Dulles in the spring of 2018. Whether you realize it or not, over 60% of the flights domestically are operated by regional partners of the mainline carriers. So many times you may have been on a regional, but you wouldn't realize it. The paint on the airplane says United or American or Delta, but it's operated by one of their regional affiliates. Of those regional affiliates, we really hit the lottery in this community in that we got the best of those regional affiliates to operate our service. SkyWest Airlines, they're one of the largest, I think they are now the largest regional in the country. They fly for United, for American, and for Delta. They're a large company. They have a 35-year history of providing just exceptional service. So we really got lucky with them. You can see our operational performance for the last 12 months, 97.8% completion metric. That is just unheard of. Even though some of our flights haven't been as full as they used to be, they still have run incredibly reliable throughout the past 10 or 11 months. They have full integration with United, so that means you can go online to united.com, book your ticket, your bags transfer through. Even if you're flying from here to Paris or London, it's one check-in, your bags check through, you go through screening. So it is the United product. United Airlines is providing the service in this community. Again, service to their 2 hubs, which is a very complementary pattern. Dulles, pre-pandemic, did a really good job if you were going to Europe or up and down the East Coast, a little bit to the West Coast. And Chicago provided great service to the middle part of the country and other international destinations like the South Pacific and Asia. So we've been really pleased with this. The service is done really well. As a matter of fact, United added some frequency. They added an additional arrival and departure in December of 19 because it was so well received by the community. This is a sampling of where our passengers traveled in the last year over those 2 hubs. And you can see the reach of the 2 hubs and where folks wanted to go. Now, this has all changed a little bit in the pandemic because the airlines have modified their route maps to feed more leisure destinations and less feed to business markets, because business people haven't been traveling like they used to, and leisure people, they're still traveling. But this just shows you where our folks from here in the Valley have been headed over the last year or so. The result of this new service has been fantastic. First year it was here, 150% increase over the previous year. The next year, another 44% increase. And then as we closed out 2019, or the first quarter of 20, we saw another 35% increase. Then the pandemic hit. So nationwide, the airlines are moving about, most communities are seeing about 40% of what we all saw last year this time in terms of number of passengers they're moving. We're right in that range. Now you may say I've seen things about full flights. Well, those are kind of the exception and not the rule. If you're moving between 2 big markets like Dulles and Orlando, where they used to operate 6 flights a day, they're operating 2 now. So there's way fewer people, they're just condensed on fewer flights. To the spoke markets like us, you'll see you have plenty of room to spread out. But we are seeing a return, just even in the last 30 days as the vaccination program is being rolled out and the numbers are trending down, we're seeing our passenger numbers trending up, and we're really excited about that. Matter of fact, last Friday, TSA marked their highest numbers since last March of throughput through the U.S. airport systems, and we're seeing that locally as well. Another thing to keep in mind, we initiated the SHD Cares program back in the summer. I won't read all these, but it's our commitment to the passengers in our community, and those that are visiting our community, of some things we're doing to make sure that things are extraordinarily clean and safe. The big benefit of flying local is you're not crammed in the terminal with a bunch of other folks. There's plenty of room to spread out. Things are very clean, and it's a great way to start your journey. Winter operations. I incorporated this recently just because a lot of people have questions. February was a pretty rough month in terms of weather here locally, and folks ask, how are things going at the airport? So I kind of showed this to Jeff and his colleagues on the commission, and it was a big hit. So I've now incorporated it into our roadshow. Winter operations at airports are really, really unique, and it's very different than what you may experience out on the highway. There's specialized equipment, there's techniques, it's very involved, and it has to be much more timely. We have these airplanes coming at us almost round the clock. We get a little reprieve between 10, 11 o'clock at night and about 5:36 a.m. in the morning, but these planes are coming from places where maybe the weather's good, particularly the business and corporate airplanes, and they still want to be able to land. So it's a big lift for our staff, and they do a fantastic job, and I just wanted to touch on that for a few minutes. The process, as I mentioned, it's very different. For example, the runway, which you see there in the bottom left shot, our runway is 150 feet wide. Your average VDOT lane is 10 to 12 feet in width. And if you've ever plowed any snow, you'll know that even a 10 or 12 foot wide plow can leave a good bit of residual snow off to the side when you're plowing. Well, imagine if you're trying to deal with 150 foot width. You have to have somewhere to put all this snow, even if it's only a couple inches. And in our case, we don't let it get over about an inch in any case. So we have to employ some techniques, which is what you see in the bottom left, where we actually cut in a windrow along the sides of the runway after the accumulation gets to a certain point. The problem is you can also see the runway lights there in that shot, which can't be raised any higher than 18 inches. So we create these windrows, and then we use some specialized equipment like the top right, which is a very large, we have several of these, blowers that actually take that windrow snow and throw it over behind the runway and taxiway lights. That's why if you're taxiing around an airport, you're like, why don't they have snowbanks anywhere? we use these big blowers to disperse it, and sometimes incinerators to melt it down and run it through drains. You can see we can't use a typical plow like you'd see on a city plow or VDOT plow. Most of ours are between 18 and 22 feet wide. And you can't just plow with, you can't put that kind of blade on a pickup truck or a standard dump truck. So it requires some big, heavy duty equipment to do that. And then other inventions like these box plows that we use on the big ramp areas that are just wide open space to clear those. See these two large units that have a 20-foot blade on the front with a high-speed broom that comes along behind it, which is then followed by a high-pressure air system, an air blower that blows any residual snow out. This was kind of a messy snow. This was the last one we had. It had a lot of sleet and heavy stuff in it. The brooms leave just a little bit more than they would with a nice powdery snow. But the broom has its own engine. That's what's being towed behind it. And I slowed this video down. This piece of equipment run about 30, 35 miles per hour. So that whole runway, that's about the same as doing 20 miles of single lane interstate. And we can do it in about 15 minutes with those pieces of equipment if we don't have to get into blowing operations. And then once that's down, we come along with a liquid de-icing agent. And this is not the brine stuff you see VDOT use. We can't use anything that's corrosive or salt-based because it'll corrode airplane wings. So this is a special liquid that we put down. You can see just to the right of the center line where it's already been put out on the other side and it's already melted just that fast. This is kept in a warm facility, so when it goes down hot. And then you can see the truck behind it. He's not only watching the pattern of the liquid going down, but he's dropping a granulate material that'll make sure that the runway doesn't refreeze if temperatures are really low. So this whole operation is about a 20 to 30 minute every cycle we need to clear the runway. Also de-icing. If you've ever been on an airplane in a de-icing operation at a commercial airport, you probably wonder, like, what are they doing? And you probably smell that de-icing fluid. Sometimes it gets in the engines a little bit and it comes through the vents because of the bleed air off the engines. So we actually operate the de-icing operation at our airport, and that's not uncommon. A lot of the commercial airports, the Airport Authority, Airport Commission will operate the de-icing. There's a lot around safety, there's a lot around environmental issues, and you want to make sure you get it right. It's not the kind of thing you necessarily want to contract out. So this is a snapshot of our folks, Airport Commission employees, de-icing the United Jet before it was headed out one morning to Dulles. There are two types of de-icing fluid. This particular morning, you can see there's no snow on the ground, but the airplane had just a little bit of frost on the wings. And airplanes don't fly well with frost on the wings. It interrupts the airflow. So even that morning frost from that plane sitting overnight at our place has to be removed. And for that, we use what's called type 1 fluid. It's basically a glycol-based fluid. And we coat the wings and the tail, and we get all that frost off of it. Now, if it's an active weather situation with snow or sleet, and you don't want to just get the icing off of the airplane, but you want to keep it off of the airplane until it gets to altitude, or at least on takeoff, we put down what's called type 4. And this is it kind of slimes the airplane. It sticks to the airplane. That's that green stuff you see. So if you ever see that when you're sitting on an airplane, don't be worried there's some problem if it comes out and it's green in color. That's the type 4 that's going to keep you safe through takeoff and the climb. So a type 1 application, we come behind it with a type 4. And this is our ultimate goal. And this is one of our local Stewart Draft companies on the ramp that we see 2 to 3 times a week that employs about 1,000 people out in Stewart Draft. They make little snack cakes. So I hope this presentation has been informative. I just want to touch real quick on the capital improvement program. We have a very robust capital improvement program. We're up to almost 100 airplanes that are based and kept at the airport. The airline service has done very well. We see that continuing to expand post-COVID. So we're very aggressive with our capital program. We've got a lot of projects here. I won't go through them all, but everything from some rehabilitation projects, because over time you have to do things like repave runways and taxiways, to expansion to park more airplanes, new hangar construction, airfield lighting rehabilitation. We're out to bid now for a project that will replace all 200 plus lighting fixtures on the airfield to LED, and then some land acquisition to protect our approaches over the long term. So it's a very aggressive 5-year program. We just wrapped up a couple years ago a master plan that'll be our guiding document for the next 20 years in development, and we're in phase 1. This is some of the new hangar construction that you'll see. We're building 2 of these new corporate hangars, sort of in the center of that picture. The construction of those will start this fall. The site work is in phase 2 now as far as completion. Taxiways and aprons are in. We're moving towards the actual site for the pads and the parking lot for vehicles and the access road. Also to the north, Dynamic Aviation, one of those big hangars, they have a land lease with us, and they also, we anticipate in the next 6 months, will be moving forward with a 40,000 square foot facility. Between the 3 facilities, almost 70,000 square feet of aircraft hangar and storage facilities should be online in the next 18, 24 months. So what that reads is, we may not be a big operation as far as airports go, but we're a mighty economic engine for the valley. This is a JMU football sports team charter, a 737, just to give you an idea of the variety of type of operations we see. I'll certainly be around afterwards if you all have specific questions about travel, as hopefully we start to get this pandemic behind us and you may have interest in going somewhere. If you've got questions, I'm not an airline guy, but I know a little bit about it, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it and answer any questions you might have. Again, I just appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you all. Hopefully I stayed inside the lines on my time, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
I think we have just a couple minutes for questions. If you want to, there's one right there for Jeff.
Thanks for that presentation, Greg, and what you do as an economic engine here in the Shenandoah Valley. Curious the percentage of commercial versus private traffic that happens through the airport.
So it's about 90+% of corporate business private, general aviation versus airline. Airline is less than 10%. 6 operations a day compared to, many, many more on the general aviation side, 80 or 90 a day on the GA side. Also in terms of revenue, because we don't charge for parking. Did you hear me? We don't charge for parking. Most commercial airports derive the bulk of their revenue from the parking lots and the rental car concessions and that kind of thing. We don't charge for parking. So also along with that, only about 6 or 8% of our revenues come from the airline side. It's all general aviation.
That was a great presentation, and I especially like the winterization knowledge of that, not just for your airport, but for other airports. My question is, do you see future service partnering with either Delta or American to airports like Charlotte and Atlanta?
We definitely have the market to support additional. And as we emerge from this pandemic, it's going to be really critical that our community demonstrates to the airlines that demand is here. And we do that by using the service that's there. It's really simple in air service development when you're trying to attract an airline. They show up where the people show up. They follow the people. And they also are really good at seeing our people. Every time you buy that ticket, you're paying with a debit card or a credit card, and there's a zip code attached to it. The airlines have gotten really good at figuring out exactly where you live, where you drove to, and what you're willing to do. So we really need to vote with our feet and fly local. And this market can support a lot more service on the commercial side than what we currently have. It just leaks out to Dulles and Charlottesville and Richmond because of the alternatives maybe we don't have. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, and so I would just encourage everyone to always check it, always use it when you can, and if you do that, we'll be able to build on that and add additional service. We've had great success with this, and that's what we need to kind of build on. Good question, thank you.
Mr. Campbell, a quick question. Where do you see, this is on Zoom, where do you see the greatest growth potential, in the commercial market or in the corporate market?
Well, I think both, actually. When you look at the market share locally in terms of airlines and what share of our community that's traveling by air is actually choosing the local option versus driving elsewhere, there's a huge upside potential for this community, huge. And if we start to even put a dent in that, you could see additional frequency by the current carrier, you could see additional options. So there is a huge opportunity. We're not anywhere close to being at that point where growth is not possible. The general aviation side, the corporate side, that's really tied to what's going on in our local economy and our local employers that utilize those aircraft. And we've just, in my 30 years there, with very few exceptions, that if you look at that trend line, it has just continued to grow, steady and 6, 8, 10% a year, every year. A recession might slow it down briefly, but it's been a solid growth. So I think we've got potential on both sides. I really do. And things are really shifting right now. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. We've noticed companies that use their own airplanes using them more often during the pandemic because they're not putting their people on the airlines. How much of that sticks? We're not sure. So we'll have to see how some of this plays out over the next couple of years.
I've got a question up here. So, Greg, I want to say I've flown out of that airport quite a bit, and I really love that free parking thing. It's incredibly convenient. My question is more general. What's the largest aircraft that can land on that runway there?
So we can land basically anything but the wide body, like a 747 or 767. 737s can land there, Airbus 319, 320s, 757s. Most of the common fleet can land there. You saw that last shot, JMU, that was a 737 hauling the football team to a game. The folks at Dynamic Aviation have 3 737s they're going to be basing at our airport. So it has awesome infrastructure to handle really big airplanes if our community needs to go there. Thanks.
Thanks again, Greg, for joining us today. You're always welcome back to visit us, and so happy there's no parking charge at the airport. Nancy, I believe, let me see if Andy, okay. Nancy Whitlock, our district governor, has a quick announcement before we close out our meeting.
Thank you, President Rebecca. And while I'm ad-libbing up here, I want to ask some very special folks if they would please come up to the stage here. Laurie Landis, Maggie Van Huss, Marianne Everly Maupin, Lynn Pullen, and is Andy Van Hook here? Well, shucks. That's why we waited until the end of the day. I do want to thank Rebecca for giving me this little bit of time on very short notice, and also want to thank Greg Campbell for offering the use of a private jet for my team to fly out late on Saturday for a week's vacation in the Bahamas after district conference. Thank you. Come on up. Absolutely. He said it was a flexible departure. Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll stay over here so that, help Marianne get up there. I was hoping maybe Andy would come swooping in here, because we actually have our last run-through today. For this virtual district conference. I want to thank this group of people because they are so modest. They did not want to be recognized during district conference, and I get that. I really do. And but you know what? It's like I told you when we had our program about the conference. They have done so much for 2 years now and have really put up with me, and I think that we have put together a good virtual conference. And in addition to their plane tickets, I do have just a little token of my appreciation. First in line here is Lynn Pullen. I would like to provide you with your Paul Harris +4. And next I have Marianne Everly Maupin with her Paul Harris +5. And Maggie Van Huss, one of my co-chairs, with her Paul Harris +5. And Laurie Landis with her Paul Harris +6. And shucks, where is Andy? Because he was supposed to be here for practice. Oh, thank you, Tracy, for taking a look out there. Because I've been holding on to this since actually November because he was so instrumental in our foundation celebration. But anyway, I'll catch up with him at some point, and please give them the biggest round of applause that you can.
Thank you, Nancy. Hope everyone can join us Saturday. Let's see, log in to, actually, just click the link on the District 7570 website, and it's a live stream that will begin there. No other final announcements. Next week is Deborah Freeman from the Warm Shelter, and she will let us know how the Warm Center and the Valley Mission responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Please stand for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, be beneficial to all concerned. Be well, meeting adjourned.